Hey everybody! Welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name's Amanda and I'm so glad that you could join me today. Today we're talking about something that people have heard of before, but they might not have a very strong understanding of what their role was. Today we're going to talk about prophets, messengers, and angels. Are they the same thing? Are they slightly different? What are they supposed to do? We're going to talk about those different characteristics, and we're going to look at them through the lens of Judaism, the lens of Christianity, and the lens of Islam, because we want to be well-rounded people. Correct? Correct. Okay, so we're looking at prophets and messengers. All three of those religions, or all three of those religious beliefs, I should say, have prophets, messengers, and angels. However, how they're utilized is slightly different. How they're viewed is slightly different. So I wanted to make sure that this video essentially is as clear as mud, because there's a lot of similarities and unique differences between the three. Okay, so let's just dive in and let's get messy. Okay, we're going to start today talking about Judaism. And the prophets basically were people, just regular people, but they spoke from God. They were basically giving a role model to the Jewish people of what they were supposed to be like. They were holy in their character. They were great studying people. They basically came to help people realize, nope, we're drifting too far away from Torah. We need to get back to Torah. Nope, you can't do this. It's against Torah. And it wasn't typically a good thing when prophets came. There's said to be hundreds of thousands of prophets that were around in the days where the Jewish people were in the temples. However, there are only 55 written down in the scriptures. Now, some of them are males, some of them are females, so that is not a thing, but it's interesting that there were hundreds of thousands. Only 55 were written down. And I wonder if that's partially because people don't always like to listen when somebody says, oh, you're doing this wrong. Oh, let's get back. Let's do this instead. It's tough for some people to hear that. So I wonder if that's why. I'm not sure. Interestingly, the hundreds of thousands that they say were prophets throughout time, not all of them were Jewish. That was surprising to me. I didn't realize that. In Judaism, they believe that God is God and man is man, and he has a special relationship or connection with the Jewish people, but that doesn't mean that everybody else is bad and they're all going to hell. That's not the same thing. They believe that they can be people who are not Jewish and still be good people. So it was just interesting for me to learn that some of the prophets that came to the Jewish people weren't actually Jewish. That was surprising to me. Now, as far as it comes to angels and messengers, in Judaism, basically they're the same thing. They're entities sent from God to kind of tempt people, because people are given free will. And the angels have direct decrees from God, direct missions. They don't have free will. They can't choose. But they are sent with the purpose of tempting the people so that we can strengthen our personal convictions and we can choose repeatedly. Do they want a relationship with God? Do they want to do what they want to do, and that's what they're going to focus on? It's just something different. Something different. So that's Judaism. They have prophets. The prophets are people who are very knowledgeable, very respected, and they speak from God's wisdom. And they typically were sent to the Jewish people to say, you're falling short. We need to get back to Torah. And people didn't necessarily like that. Understandably so. Now, in Christianity, it tends to take a little bit more of a positive turn. So in Christianity, prophets are viewed as entities that come to convey a prophecy for the future, perform miracles, proclaim a message, or they just see visions. They just have this understanding that they're sharing. It's not necessarily bad things. It's kind of like there. It's always stuff in the future that they're talking about. It might be a warning that this is what is going to happen, or watch out for this second Tuesday thing. I'm just making up stuff right now, but prophets typically talked about the future. So they spoke. They weren't just people. There was a hierarchy. If you were a prophet, you were speaking in God's name, which means you were elevated. You were not the same level as everybody else. And again, researching prophets specifically in Christianity, which I grew up in for 41 years, it baffles me that I don't know some of this. And perhaps I wasn't paying attention in Sunday school or confirmation, but I really, truly did not know a lot of this. That's kind of sad and kind of embarrassing, but I'm going to be 100% truthful here. So prophets were speaking in God's name. They were elevated. In total, within the Bible, they name 43 male prophets and they name 4 female prophets. They're Anna, Deborah, Hadul, and Miriam. Miriam is Moses' sister. But it's interesting because they also say that to every good there is a bad. So there are prophets, people who are coming to speak for God, but there are also false prophets known as Satan. And he's basically coming to mislead everybody, to confuse everybody, to get people confused and get them to join his side. It's just intriguing. Now, if a prophet came and they were initially rejected by the people said, nope, I don't believe you, I don't want to hear it. Then in Christianity, they viewed those individuals as messengers. Prophets are speaking for God and they're accepted by everyone. Messengers try to speak for God or through God, but they're rejected. And just that that communal rejection, that changes the level they're at. So there's everyday people, messengers are like a half step above, and then prophets are even higher than that. And then if you're in Catholicism, then you have saints and stuff like that continue to go higher. Okay? Of all the 3 religions that we're going to talk about, angels are most prominent in Christianity. Yeah, specifically in the Protestant denominations of Christianity. Very, very strong. To the point that they sometimes are viewed as almost like a deity. Angels are right up there with Jesus for a lot of people. 77%, as a matter of fact, believe in angels, believe they have a guardian angel, and they believe angels protect and watch over them. It's a heavenly entity that they are experiencing something with. They typically don't see angels as far as like people with wings, but they have experiences that mean something more to them. So there are people who believe that if they see a butterfly, that's actually a loved one that's passed sending them a message. There are people who say that if their dad loved eagles, for example, and when their dad passes, if they see an eagle and their eagle is like following their car, it's their dad's spirit continuing to guide and guard them. So a lot of Christians believe in this idea of a guardian angel. Now, guardian angels are not biblically supported, but guardian angels are typically a loved one that has passed and they're protecting you from unknown harm. But it also can be someone that you don't know. So they might be called a guardian angel. Some people call it a spirit guide. Someone who is trying to keep you away from the bad and help you towards the good. It's slightly different. But there are a lot of people, again, 77% of Christians that believe in angels. And they won't necessarily pray to them, but at the same time, they will look for them, they will speak to them, they will ask for their help in some regards. They rely heavily on angels. My mom, as a matter of fact, is very, very big into angels and feeling the presence of loved ones that have passed around her to kind of help reassure her in some ways. And I'm certain my mom's not the only one. Certain not. But angels most certainly are big in Christianity. Now, in Islam, if you're talking about prophets, again, they have a slightly different purpose, okay? Prophets in Islam were believed to spread God's message on earth. So they basically were similar to the Christians as far as they were God's messenger on earth, okay? Now, the messengers were used to transmit divine revelations. So prophets are speaking for God. Messengers are sharing revelations, that images, thoughts, ideas that have been given by God. Two different things. In Islam, messengers are frequently coexisting as angels. So Muhammad, for example, is the last and final prophet in Islam. Muhammad was not thought to be just telling revelations, things he had thought of. No. In Islam, Muhammad is actually saying what God wants him to say. He's been given the words. He's been given the ideas. It's not just, God spoke to me and I think we should do this. No, as a prophet, they're literally speaking on God's behalf for God, things like that. As far as a messenger would be like, you probably shouldn't go down that alleyway. Okay? In Islam, within the Quran, there are a total of 25 messengers. 25. So different numbers throughout. It's very interesting. Judaism has hundreds of thousands, and Christianity has 4 female and 49 males, and Islam has 25. So everybody sees different people within it as different statuses. Some say that Abraham was a prophet. Some say he was not a prophet. He was just the leader. Some people say Moses is a prophet. Some people say Deborah was a prophet. It's different. It's different. It's interesting to see which sources find validity in different people. Just intriguing. Now, in Islam, the prophets had many different jobs. First of all, they were supposed to be exemplar human beings. They were supposed to be like perfect in almost every way. They were the epitome of what you should look up to and who you should desire to be in Islam. Okay? In Islam, the prophets typically talked about one of 3 things. They either talked about the oneness of God, they talked about worshiping only one God, or they talked about avoiding idolatry and sin. So it was one of those 3 things that they typically came to remind the Islamic people about. Okay? They were speaking of that. Remember, prophets are speaking God's words. Messengers, I think this came to me, so I think this is it. And it's guiding in kind of in a backshift way. The prophets in Islam, they also believe that the prophets have a straight line of lineage. It goes all the way from Adam to Muhammad, and they can tell you point by point how they got there. They say it's through genealogy. Now, they've had all different people, all different ages of prophets, things like that. For example, Muhammad, who is the last and the most important prophet to the Islamic faith, became a prophet at 40. Whereas in the Islamic faith, Jesus was a prophet as an infant because he spoke as an infant and he spoke God's words as an infant. In Islam, they also have female prophets. So every single religion has had female prophets. Now, they're typically less than the males. That could be because population balances. There were more males than females. It could be that females just didn't speak up as much. That's not my place to judge, not my place to question. But it's interesting that all 3 had females. Just the other portions of who counted, who didn't, that's a difference, okay? Now, I've said before that Muhammad, according to Islam, was the last and final prophet. But why? Why? What makes him so special? Why did he get credit for being the last and final prophet? So I did some research, and according to 2 verses 127 through 129, Muhammad is the last and final prophet because the promises that were made to Ibrahim were fulfilled. And that promise was basically to provide a prophet throughout the generation of Ishmael. So basically, it was supposed to be a person, and it was supposed to be someone who would speak for God that was in this certain family line, is essentially what it was. And Muhammad just fit all those right things. So that's why they say that he is the last and final prophet. Because Muhammad met that promise, they believe it sealed the prophets, and the time for prophets is done. So there's not going to be another prophet in Islam. Okay? So it was interesting to do some research and discover that prophets exist in all 3. And the meaning behind the prophets, why they came, are they still coming? That's all just a little bit different and very intriguing to just discover more on, okay, so is God speaking now? Is he not? Is my understanding the same? Does it change? It's just very intriguing. So I hope you learned something. You gained a little bit of insight. Maybe you were struck by something that I was not by, or maybe you share some new information with me. But that's what I have for today, and I hope you learned something. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.